to react, host of the Dana show, Dana Loesch. Did the left, did the liberals' brains explode over this, Dana?
They did, and it's good to see you, Reagan. It's good to see you, and my mind is kind of overflowing with this because I feel like for one of the first times, this sort of puts us on even footing a little bit. I mean, Dagan, think about it. With all the U.S. aid funding that was discovered, all of the waste, the millions, billions of dollars of taxpayer money that was wasted, and we sent to these, foreign entities, to these foreign NGOs. And I just think that for the price that American taxpayers paid, absolutely, I do think that if you're not supporting our citizens, especially whether it's like a company or whatever, I feel like turnabout's fair play. And I like what Marco Rubio has done here. I really think that he's grown into his own in this role. So I don't have any objections to this. And I just wish that everybody else that's criticizing it would get on the same page, because I think that we've paid quite enough and we've been punished enough by the world. So, yes, I think that, this makes sense. I like what he's doing here.
Particularly since this used to be isolated primarily on communist nations and our enemies. In this case, we're talking about the EU and their, what do they call, the Digital Services Act, which is essentially a censorship act, or the UK, which in some cases has even more restrictive censorship. So these are our friends and allies. If we don't speak out about this, if we don't try to change this, the rest of the world's going in the wrong direction.
Well, and a lot of it, too, David, think when everything with the coronavirus was happening and the worldwide pandemic, all of these tech agents, all of these, the tech bros, whether it was X, which was then Twitter, Facebook, or whatever, they were getting a lot of pressure from these foreign governments to comply with what they viewed as misinformation. And we all remember how misinformation or disinformation was defined. Basically, anything that detracted from the government's narrative at that time, or the WHO narrative, that was considered disinformation, no matter how scientifically valid. And there was a lot of pressure on these companies, and in order to get them to fall in line with speech. And it was really shocking to see, especially with our allies. I don't want to think that our allies do it, but at the same time, yes, I think that that is going to come into play, whether or not you can visit the United States and come here and have the welcome mat spread out for you. Where do you stand on this issue? Were you pressuring American companies and American citizens to fall in line with what your view of disinformation is?
Dana, I want to move on to this. The Department of Health and Human Services has directed healthcare providers today to update their protocols for minors with gender dysphoria after a review finding weak evidence to justify the use of things like puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries, advising that, quote, providers should no longer rely on discredited guidelines that promote these dangerous interventions for children and adolescents based on ideology, not evidence. So to be crystal clear, right, Health and Human Services has told medical providers in this nation, you will not chemically castrate and sterilize children any longer who have gender dysphoria. You can treat them with psychology and psychiatry, going in the very way that Europe has gone and Britain has gone, because the puberty blockers do not work. And this is eugenics. And finally, the U.S. is putting a stop to it.
Yeah, completely agree. Dagan, how weird is it that, I mean, this makes all the sense in the world to us, but before this was being practiced as actual medicine. This was never about informed consent either with these minors and these children that they were experimenting on. I mean, when you look at the hormonal abuse that's been done to prepubescent bodies, we don't know what the long-term health impacts of that are. In fact, that hasn't been routinely studied for as long as they were trying to insinuate that it was. I mean, for crying out loud, I mean, a lot of this stuff that they're using with men and women, they still don't even know what the long-term implications of this are. So for them to have previously presented it as some sort of informed consent was insane. It's not medicine. I mean, you're playing into what I and many others believe is, a mental difficulty that these people are struggling with, and you don't make it, especially when they're minors and their bodies are developing, and there are serious long-term implications that will affect them the rest of their lives, that mean that they're going to be reliant upon medication, maybe even more surgeries down the road. It's anti-scientific. I mean, it's entirely illiberal, and that this was being practiced as medicine in this country is insane. I feel like we're back to the days of throwing virgins in volcanoes to satisfy angry sun gods. That's not where we are anymore.
Yeah.
We believe in science. We believe in reason. So finally, we're seeing this happen. Finally, it took long enough.
Thank goodness. I want to try to squeeze one more in. The liberal media has found its next sob story. Apparently now we're supposed to feel bad for the millions of Americans whose credit scores are tanking because they aren't paying back their student loans. I mean, if finally we could just come out and say it, these folks are deadbeats. I mean, there was a time when I was eating tuna fish alone for the whole day just so I could pay off my student debts when I was working just after college. You can do it if you put your mind to it, but these folks aren't.
They're not. And then they always complain, David, to your point, that, well, it was different if you're Gen X or even an older millennial or a boomer or whatever. It was different. Yeah, it was, because that's before Democrats universally, they solidified all student loans in the federal government, to make the federal government the originator and controlling student loans. What did everyone think was going to happen? I mean, for crying out loud, that was done under Obama, Biden. And that's when you can track the cost of colleges soaring. So yes, when you take out a loan, when you willfully sign on to that loan and agree to those terms, that's your responsibility. It's not ours. We're taxed enough already.
Dana Loesch, so good to see you. Thank you so much for being here.